Welcome to another session of the ISP F1 Visa Navigator, your trusted guide to navigating the student US visa process. Today, we are going to talk about one of the most important aspects of visa decision making, that is 214B refusals. If you have ever wondered why so many F1 visa applicants get denied, this is the session for you. Now, 214B is by far the most common reason for student visa refusals, and if you don't understand what it is and how to avoid it, you could end up being one of those applicants walking away from the visa window without an approval. A 214B refusal means that the visa officer does not believe that you will use the visa as intended. It is a judgment call, meaning that officers have the authority to refuse any applicant if they think that there isn't enough evidence to justify approval. But here is the thing. Many applicants don't realize that they are responsible for proactively presenting their case. The officer will not go out of their way to search for reasons to approve you. So today, we are going to take a deep dive into how visa officers think, why 214B is applied, what they are looking for in an applicant, and most importantly, how you can present yourself in a way that leads to an approval. Before we go any further, let's take a look at what the law actually says. According to Section 214B of the U.S. Immigration and Nationality Act, every alien shall be presumed to be an immigrant until he establishes to the satisfaction of the consular officer at the time of the application for a visa that he is entitled to a non-immigrant status. This means that the law requires visa officers to assume that you intend to stay in the U.S. permanently unless you can prove otherwise. It is then your responsibility to demonstrate strong home ties and provide enough evidence to convince the visa officer that you are a genuine student who plans to return home after completing your studies. If you fail to do this, the visa officer has no choice but to refuse your visa under 214B. Right, now let's take a look at the decision-making process and how visa officers think. Visa officers make hundreds of decisions every single day. They don't have time for long explanations or detailed document reviews. Instead, they work by scanning for key indicators, both positive and negative, to make a decision in just 2 to 3 minutes. If you have ever been in a visa interview, you have probably noticed that officers are looking at their computer screens while they are asking you questions. They are not ignoring you. They are reviewing your DS-160 form, checking your service record, and typing notes about what you are saying in real time. Now, these notes are important because every visa officer must justify their decision. If they approve a visa, they need to explain why. If they refuse a visa, they need to have clear reasons documented in their system. That means if you fail to present clear, positive reasons for approval, the officer will not have enough information to justify issuing you a visa. And in cases where there is any doubt, the default decision is always a refusal. Now, why does a visa officer issue a 214B refusal? There are two main scenarios where this happens. The first is when the applicant fails to provide strong positive evidence to justify visa issuance. If you walk into the interview and simply just answer questions without actively highlighting the strengths of your case, the visa officer will have nothing solid to base an approval on. The second scenario is when there is something negative in your application or something that the visa officer perceives as a red flag and you don't address it properly. In this case, the officer sees a risk factor but doesn't hear anything from you that convinces them otherwise. Let's go into scenario 1, not providing enough positive evidence. This is the most common reason why visas are refused. The visa officer isn't necessarily saying that you don't qualify. They are saying that you haven't provided enough information to justify an approval. A lot of students assume that the visa officer will automatically understand their case by just looking at the DS-160 form or the I-20, but that is not how it works. You need to directly and explicitly highlight the strongest points of your application, whether it's your academic background, your career plans, financial stability, or even family ties. Think about it this way. Visa officers are like detectives. They are looking for clues that prove that you are a legitimate student who will return home after your studies. If you don't provide them with those clues, they will default to refusal because they don't have anything positive to put in their notes. For example, instead of just saying, I am going to study business in the US, you should say, I have been admitted to Rutgers University, which has a strong business program. My long-term goal is to apply this knowledge in my home country where the financial sector is expanding, and my degree will give me a competitive advantage. This tells the visa officer why you chose your program, how it connects to opportunities back home, and why you will return home after graduating. The 3 key factors they need to justify your approval. The second way you can get a refusal under 214B is presenting a negative factor without countering it properly. For example, having a family member in the US can be seen as a red flag because the visa officer thinks that you plan to join them permanently. If you just answer yes when asked if you have a sibling in the US, you are letting the officer make assumptions about your intentions. A much stronger response would be, yes, my sister lives in the US. She originally went there on an F1 visa, completed her master's degree, and later got married to a US citizen. However, my case is different because I am fully committed to returning home after my studies because I have a job offer in my home country in the finance field, for example, which requires my degree. Instead of letting the visa officer assume a negative, you are providing a positive counterpoint that helps to justify your approval. This strategy applies to any potential negative in your application. Whether it's a career change, you can explain how your degree is essential for your field. A weak financial profile, you can show strong sponsorship and stability back home. A previous visa denial can be countered by explaining what has changed and why you are a stronger applicant. If you don't take control of the narrative, the visa officer will fill in the blanks themselves, and that could result in a denial. Right, now let's take a look at how to avoid a 214B refusal. At the end of the day, the default decision is a refusal, and you must actively give the officer strong positive reasons to approve your visa. First, identify your strongest arguments before the interview. What are the best points that justify your visa issuance? This could be academic excellence, career opportunities back home, financial security, or family responsibilities. Whatever they are, you need to communicate them clearly and early on in the interview. Secondly, prepare to counter any potential negatives. If you have anything in your application that might raise doubts, have a concise and confident response ready. Don't wait for the visa officer to make their own assumptions. Finally, approach your interview as a structured conversation. The goal is to help the visa officer understand why approving your visa is the right decision. The clearer and more confident you are, the easier it will be for them to justify saying yes. Now that you understand why 214B refusals happen and how visa officers think, you can start preparing the right way. Your visa approval depends on how well you present your case. So take control of the interview by providing strong positive evidence and countering any potential negatives. And at the International Scholars Program, we do more than just help students secure admission and funding. We train them on exactly how to handle their visa interviews. Our program prepares students to navigate every aspect of the F1 visa process with confidence. If you're looking for expert guidance, structured preparation, and a community of students successfully making their way to the US, then join the International Scholars Program today. The good news is that you only need a bachelor's degree with a 2.8 GPA out of 4 to qualify, and for Ugandans, this means a 3.8 out of 5 GPA. As long as you have a degree with these minimums, we do not check your high school performance. For more information about the International Scholars Program and a full breakdown of how ISP works, visit our website at www.internationalscholarsprogram.com and download our handbook. You can also interact with us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, X, and Instagram, all at International Scholars Program. We share expert insights and tips on studying abroad and inspiring success stories of our students. Thank you so much for joining us today on the ISP F1 Visa Navigator. We will see you in the next session where we continue to guide you through the visa process.